Good day and greetings from Pretoria, South Africa. My name is Dr. Charles Cotter. I'm the host of Talking to the Titans of Training. I'd like to welcome you to episode 7, very special edition, a Women's Day edition. And it's very fitting that we have one of the learning and development management dynamos, Thandi Jacobs, joining us shortly as our guest for episode 7. I just want to give you the backstory with regards to Talking to the Titans of Training. I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, and I've often found that the training profession doesn't always get the recognition and credit that it deserves. So the whole purpose and the intention of Talking to the Titans of Training is to showcase and to salute and to acknowledge the work of the innovators, the movers and shakers, the true servants of the industry. And it's a great privilege this morning to welcome Thandi. Thandi is one of the young upcoming stars of the learning and development industry. And also I think it's very appropriate that she is our guest for episode 7 of Talking to the Titans. Good morning, Thandi. Welcome to episode 7 of Talking to the Titans of Training.
Good morning, Charles. Very, very delighted to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. How are you?
Great. No, I'm very good, thank you. And it's an absolute privilege to have you here.
Great.
I don't know, maybe we start the discussion, maybe just a general message to women. We know today's Women's Day, but especially women in the learning and development industry. Any particular message that you would like to share with the women on this very special day?
So very interestingly, learning and development is a profession that has a higher representation of women. And so I think it's quite apt for me to say that we've been in the backgrounds, we've been pioneers, we've been in the forefront, supporting our businesses, helping people grow careers. And so let's continue doing that. Let's not stop. Now is not the time to stop.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that inspirational message, Thandi. So Thandi, let's start. Your career dates back, I think, 18 years. Started out in the industry 2002. Distinguished yourself very early on in a leadership role, and then very interestingly did very well at mathematics and science in high school, and then did a diploma.
Don't tell other people that.
And then you did a diploma in systems and software engineering. That was in 2001. So maybe you could just talk us through the genesis of your training career. How did you go from a diploma in systems and software engineering to break into the training industry in 2002? So maybe you could just relate that particular journey. And then also in the early years, were there any particular mentors or coaches who inspired you, people that maybe paved the way to enable you to achieve the success, 18 years later, that you have in the learning and development industry?
Yeah. So my career really started when a neighbor, virtually a stranger when you think about it, approached me and introduced me to someone who she knew was looking for an assistant. And obviously she didn't have a lot of detail. She said to me, you know what, it's an admin role. I just graduated, so I was stuck between, I obviously need to make use of this IT thing that I've now got. And it really took a single phone call. I called, it was Ezekiel More. Affectionately, I call him as Abu Zakes. And I phoned him up and he said, listen, I'm looking for somebody who's just going to do all of this admin nonsense that I'm not into. Let me meet you. And then I've got a client I have to go see in Bloemfontein. And so that trip is coming up in the next 2 days. So you gotta be up to this. Long story short, I meet him and he almost sizes me up. He's a tall man, and I'm like obviously very small. And a couple of days later, we were on a trip to Bloemfontein. So I hadn't had a job at the time. It was just probably as a temporary job, really. That's what it was. And on the first day, probably just before lunchtime or around lunchtime, he approaches me and he offers me a full-time job.
Wow.
And I was incredibly excited. I was obviously a fish out of water. I'm 5 hours away from home with a stranger. And the birth of my career started there. And shortly when we got back home, he introduced me to his business partner, Floyd Dao, and they both were really instrumental mentors for me at the beginning of my career. They ran a training and management consultancy firm. And so that was my into the industry. My very first introduction was with the Department of Education. And this was at a really critical time in our country when teachers were finding themselves in a really awkward situation where they're teaching children who are now heads of households, largely due to the deaths caused by HIV and AIDS. And so teachers were now social workers, teachers were now welfare advisors, teachers were now, needing to manage change, both from a psychological state of the children that they're teaching, as well as for them, that I'm now no longer teaching a child who's just worried about their, playing and, making friends, but now they're worried about feeding siblings, about making sure that they still have lights at home. And really that first project for me on teaching teachers about empathy, change management, was really the first thing that it caught my heartstrings, and I was sold. I was sold from day one.
Wow.
Long story short, in that organization, I got to meet some really great other consultants who did training. For one of the names that comes up is Austabea. Hi, Austabea. I see she's still doing some really nice work. And part of that process, some early mentors when I moved into the banks, Sean Farrell and Billy Mayer, who were CFO and CEO at the time, and then Sean shortly became CEO. Again, really great mentors, great advice for my career, just for life in general, and that I shouldn't take things so seriously. And so I really appreciated that. I have a list of people, so bear with me. I keep referring to Silette Harris, Angela Donnelly, Marley Bakker, Chantal van der Vestes, and Dean Retief, Ingrid Hurwitz, Sifiso Mthembu, Catherine Thomas, and one of my favorites, Marlon Isaacs. How's it, Marlon? I see you. Again, these mentors for me and these individuals have come at different phases in my career and at different times, and have given me such wonderful gifts beyond advice, and just how to be and how to conduct myself and how to show up in certain spaces. And I've learned skills, I've learned practical skills, I've learned life skills. So I've really, really been truly grateful for those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I think the systems and software engineering industry loss is the learning and development industry gain. So by accident, almost coincidentally, that you ended up in the learning and development industry. And I think that's been absolutely amazing. So thank you for sharing that story with us. It's also quite interesting just listening to some of the other guests of Talking to the Titans. A lot of them acknowledge that they ended up in training by default. It's more like training found them than they found training. So it's quite interesting. We see to share quite a few common denominators in the industry.
Yeah, I think there is definitely that trend. But the honest truth for me is that for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I think it was when I got to high school and I realized how much teachers in school earn, and obviously wanted to make far more money than that.
Yeah. Teachers
so that's how
underpaid.
So that's how I defaulted into IT.
Yeah.
But again, the bug found me. My very first project was working with teachers, and so that's how I just I suppose the higher calling for me that just took me back.
No, absolutely. That's fantastic. And it's also reassuring just when you recounted some of the mentors and the coaches that have helped you, pave the way forward in your career. A lot of them are women. And I think that's, like you said, there is proportionately a higher ratio of women in the industry. But I think it's reassuring that women tend to help other women and not to be, very selfish. We found with other guests as well of Talking to the Titans that tended to be one of the critical success factors is to have this abundance mindset as opposed to a scarcity mindset. And I think that social learning through mentoring and coaching has been pivotal to all of our careers. So I think it's reassuring to hear that there are so many women that have had such a positive influence on your career.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
fantastic.
and I continue doing work with women.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I had a look at your bio, very impressive, and I did acknowledge that you have many professional bows to your string. I know you're very passionate about leadership development, talent development, leadership. Especially at executive level, empowering women, also OD. So although your core function right now is learning and development, I think we need to acknowledge that you are an incredibly versatile learning and development professional. And I think that's a lesson for a lot of us in the industry. We can't just rely on one competency. If you want to add business value, I think we have to have that versatility. I think, and I think you've, over the years, over the last 18 years in the industry, I think you've done exceptionally well to equip yourself with those skills. But in the same token, I know that you've also been very committed to skills and knowledge transfer. So giving back to the industry and sharing. And I think that is very inspirational.
Yeah.
So Thandi, that was around about 2002, and then you had a consulting position, and then I think that's when you broke into, I think it was Rand Merchant Bank. That's when you broke into the banking sector, and then a few years after that, your rise into learning and development management position was quite rapid. And I would say the last 13 or 14 years, you've then been in learning and development management positions, various corporate positions for various blue chip companies. If you have to reflect on your career as a whole, the past 18 years, starting out as an associate, then being promoted into a consultant, and then into management, and now in an executive position, what would you rate as some of your career highlights? Definitive career highlights, or any critical success factors that you would like to share, especially with women who would also, similar to yourself, would like to distinguish themselves in the learning and development industry?
Yeah, I think it would be unfair, and sometimes in some instance a little inaccurate, to say that I have distinct career highlights. So I think my whole career has been a highlight in itself. Really, really, so much gratitude for the opportunities that I've had. But I think, of the couple of things that pop out to mind, are opportunities to create programs. And so for me, it was the discovery of my personal talent in the world of people development came quite early. And so I'm grateful for that. And so that for me has been the creation of learning programs for people, and both for skill as well as the impact transformation in the various organizations that I've had the really great privilege of being part of. And, another one is running learnerships for about 2,000 people at a time. And so that was, and that came at a time when I had really very thin experience with learnerships, and I had to learn quite quickly. My client base was large, and so that it gave me a really great opportunity to learn and also to understand the value that these types of programs bring to the individual as well as to the organization, and sometimes long term. Another big passion that I have is for young talent development. And so young talent for me has been things like learnership programs, graduate programs that I got involved in quite early in my career, as well as, one of the most recent years, the YES initiatives. Yes. That, again, for all the right reasons, we're doing this. And the current YES initiative that I'm involved in is really special to me because, again, fish out of water in an industry that is part of our value chain, but completely out. So I'm in insurance, and I've got a group of young people that are in panel beating and salvage and management, a world honestly, I really don't understand, but I've had to learn to get and understand, and having to build the relationships with those external stakeholders as well. And that has been truly, truly a highlight for me. And so one of your earlier words around versatility in what we do is important, because in understanding that there's an entire value chain beyond what you do, beyond the organization that you're part of, that is beyond sometimes the impact that you have as well. And so I'm really, really grateful for some of those types of opportunities. And those three would pretty much be the highlights for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just shared the slide of your biography, and like I said, very impressive professional metrics, 117 different programs that you've been directly involved with, 18 years of experience, over 4,000, I'm giving you too much credit, 4,000 different learners, through your learnership programs, in particular graduate development programs. And I'll also ask you then just to share your contact details at the end of the Talking to the Titans episode, for, I think, aspirational young women who would like to make their mark in the industry. I don't know how open you are for mentoring and coaching. Do you currently have the capacity? Do you work a lot with women empowerment at a professional level?
Yes, so I do. My first involvement with women empowerment and women type programs was at Nedbank, when I joined the Nedbank Women's Forum. But obviously I think I joined that at the later parts of my career at Nedbank. But it has been something that I've been passionate about. And so when I was part of FNB, which was immediately after I was part of Nedbank, then the opportunity to build and implement FNB's first flagship women leadership programs. And so that was, again, a really great opportunity to be part of something really big, not just for the organization or for the women themselves, but for our country and what senior leadership looks like in the organizations that we are part of.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that with us, Thandi. So we will share your contact details at the end of the episode, and if there's any female aspirant learning development professionals, I think they can gladly contact you, and I think you'll gladly and generously share your advice if you're not in a position to mentor or coach them. So I think, Thandi, you'll agree with me that COVID-19 is probably one of the most topical discussion points at the moment. So maybe at a professional level, if you could just take us through, middle of March when the whole outbreak, really when the bubble burst. So how did you respond professionally to COVID-19? What sort of impact has it had on your professional life? And I think you'll acknowledge that the industry is in a bit of a recession right now, in a bit of a slump. A lot of us, especially the independent trainers, we're struggling to get training assignments, etc. So a lot of us are struggling right now, especially women. So any general advice that you would share with us in how to be more resilient and maybe how to overcome the adversity of this global pandemic so that we can bounce back and continue to prosper in the industry?
So I think, certainly the first lockdown that we had, we thought we are going to work from home for 21 days. And we will come back and everything's going to be normal. Little did we know, obviously, that, right now we're 5 months into some sort of a lockdown process, and restrictions that we have. So there is no normal. And I don't think that the normal that we had this time last year is any sort of normal that we will continue having and continue enjoying it, not even for the next 5 years. And so that's one of the acknowledgements to make. Professionally, as a parent, let me bring that both of those sides in, is that it's given me a really great joy to be at home, closer to the children. But again, that opportunity itself, even as a parent, as a working parent, has presented new problems because it's blurred the lines between, am I working from home or am I at home working? So that has been that. And obviously new challenges that have come up around psychological disconnection for us as professionals who largely do a lot of creative work and a lot of people work. It's difficult to disconnect, specifically when you're working from your kitchen table. And in terms of the economy and our business, yes, we took a big hit as learning professionals because a lot of the digital-based or digital-enabled learning processes were still in development. And so we were nowhere near ready. A lot of our work still relied on people showing up to a place. And so whether that was, classroom-based, mentoring type conversations that were face-to-face, And so that kind of the cutting of the umbilical cord had to happen quite quickly. And we've spent, I know I've certainly spent a large part of the 5 months converting existing classroom learning into a digital format. And again, the challenge with where we are in South Africa is that, you mentioned it earlier, you've got a couple of routers to connect you to the world, and sometimes technology lets you down. And so is it connectivity? Is it the device you use? Is it all of those factors that come into play when we want to deliver really successful and sustainable learning to our people? Means that we have to take into consideration factors that we normally wouldn't, simply because of where we are.
Yeah. So would you then say that your professional response to COVID-19 was instantaneous? You were agile in terms of re-engineering, recreating or redesigning your digital learning processes, your digital learning content. And what would you say were some of the benefits now because of that rapid and agile response? Are you now beginning to see some of the rewards as opposed to maybe just being in denial or procrastinating or just waiting for the industry to shift? Have you seen any tangible benefits from this rapid response to this global COVID-19 pandemic?
So it has been. One of the first things that I was able to develop was a COVID manager's guide. So what we knew was that everyone in our organization had to suddenly work from home. And so, managing virtual teams, managing performance virtually is all a new world for a lot of us who were coming to work every day. And so one of the first and earlier things that I was able to was deliver a guide, an interactive guide for our leaders so that they can understand what this whole pandemic coronavirus actually is, first of all, but also how to lead through a pandemic and how to manage performance and manage their teams and still be productive, ultimately, because the first couple of weeks was just chaos. And they say the quote of 2020 is "you're on mute," because this is all of the challenges of technology that we did not expect that we'd had. And throughout the period I was able to deliver digital-based masterclasses, which were both webinars as well as live classes that we could deliver to our leaders at the same time across the country, which is something that we hadn't been able to do before we were faced with the challenge of needing to do something like this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that wonderful success story. So what I'm hearing is a real-time learning solution, which was initiated by Learning and Development. And you and I spoke about this about a week ago. I think the ambition should be then always to become or reposition ourselves as a strategic learning partner. And I really think what you've described does justice to that role, where you can create a guide. We know this virtual work from home, remote working culture and structure is, a lot of us are out of our comfort zone. And I think it's reassuring that Learning and Development can provide a business valued learning solution to enable the business to continue without significant productivity or performance or profitability losses. So I really think well done to you and your team. I know you often give a lot of credit to your team, which is a hallmark of an exceptional leader. But I think credit to you and your team for having such an instantaneous response and for paving the way for the rest of the industry. We can benchmark against this. We can say, this can be done. And I think it's a message of hope, I think, for a lot of us that it can be done.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, this conversion and seamless transition then to digital or virtual learning. Okay, so Thandi, what are you working on currently? So what would you say are some of the primary projects that you're currently working on? What's on your radar? What's in your pipeline? Do you have any future goals? You've had a very distinguished career thus far, 18 years, littered with achievements and accomplishments and certainly a major impact. I'm not going to ask you that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Because I think COVID-19 has invalidated that question. But do you have any goals? I think you're mid-career. Sorry for being so personal, but I think you're mid-career right now. Where do you see this career going? And what is your learning and development legacy that you would like to hopefully leave an indelible footprint behind in the professional sand?
Sure. Maybe let's start with what am I working on? And I'd alluded to it a little bit earlier, in that there's a massive opportunity that's now opened up for us in the profession to create digital-based solutions, but meaningful digital-based solutions, and not just because we want to. And so quite almost daily, I'm faced with making a decision on whether I want to make something a Rolls Royce, or whether the Toyota Tazz version is good enough. And so that's some of the things I'm working on, reconverting our onboarding program, which we were in the middle of. And so that's going to be an easier transition for us into a digital-based onboarding program, where we can lock you in from the moment you say, yes, I'm going to join you as an organization, all the way to things around technical skills and solving for the likes of systems training, which is big in our business when people are working from home. As well as the introduction, which we have had, of a really great virtual leadership a set of virtual leadership development programs. And so those are already in early stages, but those are going really, really well. And very, very proud to say that I have successfully developed a virtual graduate development program as well. And so we've got our grads that have come in, and we've got a fully seamless and fully online digital solution for our graduates. So really, really proud of some of those things. And somebody said to me that I do a really not such a great job with PR. And so this is why I'm taking this interview, first of all. The second thing is I'm working on a really amazing publication to showcase learning and development in intro and in Hollard. Yeah, so super proud of some of the things that I'm working on. And I think in terms of the legacy that I want to leave behind is that I've been able to create value and meaning for people as well as the organizations that I've been part of. And I work for Hollard at the moment, and Hollard's purpose it starts off with we enable more people to create and secure better futures. And that couldn't be more true for the kind of work that we do in learning and development. Yeah.
Very powerful, thanks. So just regarding the PR, I want to give you the reassurance that you are indeed a worthy ambassador and an authentic servant of the learning development industry. So don't let anybody tell you anything else. And I mean, just the impact and the value that you're adding on a daily basis. And I was just listening to the pipeline projects and what's happening right now. And everything is online, everything is virtual, everything is digital. And I think that's a very powerful message for a lot of the training community, is that we should stop resisting the change, and we just need to get literally on board and start distinguishing ourselves in a virtual learning space. The business world has changed. It's shifted. I think I said to you the other day, one of the terms that I absolutely hate is this concept of new normal. There's nothing normal about what we're going through right now. It's abnormal. Stop sugarcoating it. Call a spade. It's abnormal, and therefore the response has to be an abnormal. Like you and I discussed the other day, it cannot continue to be business as usual. It's a business unusual environment, and therefore our strategies, our practices, our processes, especially in learning and development, need to replicate that business unusual kind of context and environment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, great, thanks. So Thandi, you know it's a Women's Day edition, so and I think you are a worthy ambassador, and certainly I know, looking at your biography, that you're also a very vocal advocate of women empowerment, especially in this industry. So what sort of message could you share with women who would like to break into the learning development industry, think about your journey, think about your story. So you have a young 18, 19-year-old woman who is at varsity or college campus, and she's studying something maybe totally unrelated to the industry. And she has these dreams like you have, but she's struggling to break into the industry, to make a mark or distinguish herself. What advice would you share with young women who would like to make their mark in the learning and development industry?
Sure. This is sometimes a tough job, and it's a lot like teaching and nursing and all of that. It's a calling. You have to be clear about your broader purpose in life of what you want to achieve out of your life. Because if it's, if it's just about money, or if it's just about showing up in big stages, it can get very lonely, and it can be not rewarding for you. And so purpose, what is your purpose, and what career would that purpose serve? What career would serve that purpose for you is a question that I would start off asking almost immediately. And some of the things that could be developed, but I also think that you need to have are things like resilience and change adaptability. Because there's so much that changes on a day-to-day. Ultimately, we are serving the businesses that we are part of, and you have to understand. There's an element of business acumen that you have to understand how the business makes money, what the industry looks like, who the competitors are, what global and local factors affect what happens within your business. And I suppose that response is true for anyone in whatever organization you work with, is to truly understand what happens in that organization. And energy. This is a demanding job. You need to have a higher than average amount of energy on a regular basis, and so you have to just stick with it every single day. And there's definitely an element of creativity that you have to employ, again, almost on a daily basis. And this creativity speaks to how you can bring in new solutions, to how you can make the same solution stick a little bit differently in terms of what you're wanting to achieve in the organizations, as well as to continuously make training fun, continuously make learning processes fun and engaging. And it's also a traffic business. You want a fair amount of traffic in the work that you do. And so there's a bit of creativity around the look and feel of some of the products that we develop.
Yeah, thanks, Thandi. That's amazing. I've jotted down all of these concepts because I think for the men in the industry, it's good advice as well. But I totally agree with you. It does start with your calling, the purpose, and then the passion, like you've articulated. It must be there. Being resilient, being agile, being a servant leader. The financial rewards aren't always there, so we shouldn't be overly ambitious in that regard. I think you can make a good living, you can make a good career, but certainly you're not going to be the highest earning people in the industry. Your business literacy, I think that's very important. And I mean, again, just getting back to your biography, I think that's something which stood out for me, is that, going from IT and then, training and HR. I think you got a diploma in HR. But then more lately, the last like 4 or 5 years, you've really amplified your business literacy. So you've done a number of management development programs, executive development programs, and I think those programs are predominantly focused on developing that business acumen that you spoke about. And I think you really are
absolutely
reaching inexhaustible amount of energy, being persistent, remember what you and I said the other day, you need to be innovative, architect. So just, take creativity to the next level. And that's the learning experience, like you said, and just making learning an enjoyable, I hate the word fun, but I get what you're saying. Learning must be an enjoyable, meaningful, pleasant experience. And it has changed, but we need to create an environment and a climate where your average South African learner will embrace that particular change. It's no longer bums in seats. So get used to that, like you said.
Yes.
So Thandi, I don't want to sound controversial, but women are always crying about the glass ceiling and the struggle that they encounter, and even pay differences, the pay gap, the so-called pay gap. From your experience, 18 years in the industry, do you feel that you've had barriers which have prevented you from fulfilling your potential as a woman in the industry, which might not necessarily be confronted by a male equivalent in the industry? So any glass ceilings, and if so, how were you able to break through those ceilings?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I've experienced an inordinate amount of glass ceilings in my career. But I can tell you that in the different stages of my life, becoming a parent was one of those where the balance was incredibly hard to nurture both my career and children. And so that in itself becomes even a psychological conflict with yourself on who's raising the children, educating them, homework, stimulation, but then at the same time you've also got your own dreams and aspirations that you want to live out. And so for me has been the not pushing so hard on the pedal, but maybe taking pumping a little bit of the brakes so that I can have a more meaningful balance between home and work, and studying as well at the same time.
Sure.
But I do think that, three things stick out for me in terms of how women could bust this proverbial glass ceiling in our careers is one, self-promotion. And I don't do this very well all the time. And so this is all new for me, and I'm getting into the consistency of it slowly. So that's important because, again, there's an article that I got, thank you, Marlon, that says men promote themselves about 33% more than what women do. And so what tends to happen is that the rewards, the admiration, everything is then unfairly skewed towards men, who are of equal performance to women.
Yeah.
And so that's the reality that we have. Again, women tend to look for mentors and coaches, but very rarely do we identify and hone in on a career sponsor, because that sponsor who is at an executive level is very important to have in our corner. And again, because we're not sure, and I know I've gone through this type of journey, I'm not sure whether, how do I go aggressively with this person, what's the game plan, or do I just let this thing organically play itself out? And so, but it is important to have a career sponsor, because that's one of those people in your career, whether they're in your organization or out of, that will be rooting for you and vouching for you in your absence. And so that's very important. And then to take agency of our own careers. Again, quite often I've heard women saying, but I do a great job. Why am I not being noticed? Yes, everybody does a great job, and this is why we continue getting paid. And so don't wish or hope that, your work will speak for itself. Get out there and make strides. Get out there, promote, even if it's one thing every now and then, but just go out there and do it, because nobody else will see the value of your work if you don't see it yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. To summarize, make sure that you do the self-promotion, talking to the titans of training, discussions and LinkedIn posts, etc. Career sponsoring, I think that's good advice. And also, like you said, agency of the career. And I'm quite vocal, whether we're male or female. If I have to add up those three bits of advice, for me, it equals just building your brand equity, your professional brand equity. And I think whether you're male or female, I think that stands you in good stead. I can really vouch for that, over the last, I would say 5 or 6 years in particular, using social media, in particular LinkedIn, just to build my brand equity and to showcase my work. But obviously, like you said, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. and we shouldn't step over that line, and try to stay as humble as possible with our achievements. And I think that is how the industry will perceive that you are here to make a difference. You are a value-adding acquisition, and like you said, you will get the promotions, you will get the rewards. So Thandi, let's move on. So you're currently in a corporate learning and development management position in the insurance industry. So you make use of an outsourced training model. So when you're looking to contract or outsource training to independent trainers for the various delivery of the learnership or graduate development programs at your company, if you, in a nutshell, maybe just the top 5 competencies or traits, what are you looking for when you appoint maybe even a full-time appointment, into your training team, or an outsourced trainer? What sort of competencies or character traits are you looking for in that particular professional?
Yeah, I think so Charles, with the work that we do, it's not all outsourced. So I think it's important for me to highlight that off the bat. We do a lot of internal design, development, and delivery. And so it's not all outsourced. And so the different partners that we will go the journey with, who are external, we look for different things, and depending on where they are. So one of the key things that stand out for us as an organization is around the purpose. So if we are a purpose-driven organization of wanting to create meaning for people, creating better futures, we always intuitively look out for that with the external partners that we work with, because that's important in terms of the overall alignment to the true work that we're doing. We're doing work for people. I definitely, pedigree and background of the understanding of our industry and our maybe, organizational context as well, does count to a degree, but sometimes it's not necessary, because you want to work with people who will deliver what you need at the level and at the quality that you require of it to be done. Again, the change adaptability is important. When things change internally, they tend to impact the work that we do for learning and development. And so, we always look to working with partners, as well as, when I recruit for my team, people who can work and adapt to quickly changing situations. And what else? Creativity. I have a soft spot for highly creative, highly energetic individuals, and so I'm always drawn to that. Again, because of the type of personality that I am, but I'm always looking for people who are creative, with understanding the practical and the pragmatic, that eye for detail and the eye for where the puzzle pieces fall together. Because that's important. Otherwise, everything is just a big dream and it's messy, and we don't want that.
Sure. Yeah, I think very good advice. And what I'm hearing is compatibility. And previous guests of talking to the Titans of Training have said the same thing. We're initially looking for job fit. We want people with a good professional pedigree, with good competence and experience, who can ultimately deliver. But we also want culture fit. We want somebody that understands the company, our business model, the value system of the company. So I think it's good advice for all trainers, in-house, but also the independent trainers, that you seek out those partnership agreements, and you seek out that compatibility. I think it's very important. I think it's such a good choice of word, partner. And, with the partnering comes compatibility. And I think really that's very good advice. Thandi, we're coming to the end of our discussion. So maybe just from my side, a final question, and then we will give you an opportunity to just share your contact details with us. So we've established that it's rough in the industry right now. It's incredibly challenging for all of us. So maybe if there were women in particular that would like to break into the industry, or even that are well established in the industry, what sort of parting message could you leave with the women in particular to continue to prosper and to grow in this industry when confronted with this extreme amount of adversity. Any final message or words of wisdom that you would like to share with women in the learning and development industry?
Yeah, off the top of my head, there's a couple. One is be clear about the value that you want to create and or add. And the reason for that is it becomes your own true north in terms of what you want to do ultimately and what success looks like. The second part is resilience. Be resilient. Things are changing so fast. We have the pleasure of working with really strong personalities in our businesses. And so you have to be resilient and understand that everybody who has strong opinions aren't out to get you. They're just voicing out specific objections because sometimes things don't make sense to them. Sometimes they have a very clear view of how certain solutions should be delivered, and so that isn't a bad idea. Because I've seen some in my career, some learning professionals, when a really strong stakeholder says, "No, I don't like it in this color." They internalize it as being that the entire thing is wrong or the entire thing is unacceptable. It's really just making sure that we are supporters of our business and we are still able to assertively say to a stakeholder, it doesn't work like that. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Trust me, I'm a doctor. Because this is what we do. We are the experts in learning. We are the experts in what we do. And so we have to stick by that. And the third piece of advice I would have is connect with a mentor and a sponsor. And it can be different people throughout your career, but people have a vested interest in your growth. Sometimes there's a much higher level of investment in your growth than you may have at the time. And that's important. And the career sponsor, career sponsor, concept more,
Yeah, that's excellent advice. The one word that you've used consistently, and it's even reflected in your biography, is the word create. So value creation, co-creation, innovation and creativity. So I think, that personifies Thandi Jacobs, this creative genius, this creative spirit, and then trying to stimulate that as much as possible in the various organizations and the clients that she does serve. So I love what you said. Thank you. Being assertive, being thick-skinned, sometimes not taking things too personally, being, a good support partner. And like you said, just being resilient during these times of change. I think that's another word that you've used repeatedly, apart from creativity, is just change adaptability and just being able to bounce back, in the face of the adversity. Because I believe that COVID-19 is a form of biological change, but it's just simply another wave of change, because next year, this time, we'll be having a different narrative, different conversation. It'll be a different type of change. And then that resilience, it's not, we shouldn't fixate on COVID-19. It should be a general capacity that we have to excel through this change adaptability.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, thank you. Thandi, could I just, in closing, could I ask you to maybe just share your contact details and if we want to find you on social media? You spoke extensively about self-promotion and the PR that you need to work on. So how do we get hold of Thandi Jacobs, and where do we find you on social media?
Sure. I have a LinkedIn profile. I'm Thandi Jacobs. I'm on, the other social media platforms. I'm Thandi Jacobs, so everywhere quite consistent. And my email address is thandi_liema@hotmail.com.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you. Thandi, thanks for your time. It's a very special day, as we know, Women's Day, and I really appreciate your contribution and your continued advocacy of women empowerment in the learning and development industry. I'd like to wish you the best of luck on your career journey. May you long continue to succeed and prosper and to grow and to exercise this positive influence that you have. And I'm sure you'll be able to actualize the legacy goals that you have and these dreams and aspirations. Ma'am, you are indeed a titan of training, and I'd like to thank you for your time, your contribution, your willingness, your generosity of sharing. We do appreciate, and I do salute you, Thandi Jacobs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. It's been such a pleasure chatting to you, and it's been such a privilege for me to meet you over the last couple of years virtually, and
Yes.
you know, more personally of late. And so thank you for this opportunity. I do hope that just this one conversation, and obviously a series I'm hoping of conversations we can have with other young women, with women in the industry, we are a formidable force.
Absolutely. And I can't top that. That is such a powerful statement. It's an exclamation mark. Thanks, Thandi. It's been a great privilege and pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Enjoy the rest of the Women's Day. Hopefully you'll be celebrating in style, and long may you continue to prosper. You are indeed a titan of training. Thank you, Thandi.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Charles.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you. So from my side, Dr. Charles Cotter, I'd just like to sign out. I'd just like to remind you what my 5 pillars of training subject matter expertise are. I'm a blended learning practitioner, also a verified, trusted and certified trainer, as endorsed by the Global Quality Assurance Authority course conductor. I specialize in strategic human resources management, strategic learning and development, management and leadership skills at all different management levels, power skills, and also business communication. Similar to Thandi, you'll also find me very active on social media. So you're welcome to link with me on Twitter. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I've also given you my cell phone number, my email address, my company page. You'll also find that on LinkedIn and Facebook, and also my portfolio of 154 slideshow presentations you'll find on SlideShare. It's a free management resource. I'm also very active on YouTube, so I'd very strongly encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube learning channel, Notabene Learning Collection, and also to click the notify button so that you will be alerted to future episodes of the Talking to the Titans of Training. So this is Dr. Charles Cotter signing out. I look forward to engaging you in future episodes of Talking to the Titans of Training. We've got a couple more very interesting guests lined up for the remainder of August and all the way through to September. Thank you. It's been a great privilege. You keep well. Thank you. Bye-bye.